Hi, I'm Stephanie.
And I'm Justy.
And together we're losing it.
We both lost over 100 pounds by developing healthy habits.
And I also had weight loss surgery and used a GLP-1 medication.
And I used a GLP-1 medication and had skin removal surgery.
We're really passionate about helping people learn to live a healthy lifestyle by sharing our experiences.
But we're not doctors, so if you have questions, reach out to your medical team. And you may see our mascot Sancho pop up from time to time.
And all three of us hope that you find our content useful.
Welcome back, friends. We're here for another episode, and this time we have a guest on. So if you're watching us on YouTube, you will see her lovely face. If you're not, you should be. But we'll take you on Spotify or Apple Podcasts or wherever. But we have the lovely Victoria, or Dr. V, as also called. I'm going to let her introduce herself because I know I won't give it any justice. So go ahead and take it away.
Hello, y'all. I am Victoria Tana, aka Dr. V. I am a licensed professional counselor in the state of Pennsylvania, New Jersey, and I'm also a doctoral level clinical sexologist. So all of the work that I do is around sex therapy and sex education. So yeah.
And that's pretty wild. And we thought Justy had the idea that being that we're in February and Valentine's Day, like we'll talk about a little bit of loving. And so a couple of we've discussed a couple of topics that we kind of want to discuss as a whole. One of them is near and dear to Justy in general, so we'll get to that. But before that, Victoria, just tell us kind of what it is that you see post surgery, because you do deal with a lot of bariatric patients, and what it is that you see as far as people that come into your office.
I do. I would say probably half of my client load, and all of my coaching is around women who have undergone bariatric surgery or are taking GLP-1 medication.
Mhm.
And if I had to say the biggest issue that I see, it's all around self-concept. What is the belief that they have about themselves as a sexual being? And that impacts their body image, it impacts their self-esteem, their sexual self-esteem, and it impacts their relationship, the relationship not only with themselves, but also with current and prospective partners. So a lot of what we do is around how do we navigate the challenges and the shifts that we undergo as we lose weight. We're going to find that we're going to have things like excess skin and fat pockets and, sensitivity changes. So how do we start to navigate these things and how do we work through the perspectives that they are holding on to that may not be things we want to continue to hold on to because it's not serving them well anymore.
What do you think? I have in my head, and I have an idea of it as a have lost 130-ish pounds 4.5 years post-op. What is would you say is the number one, I guess, complaint that women, and I bet it's primarily women, right? Because men really don't give a shit. They're like, look what I got.
Right.
But women, in particular, are like, what is holding them back from meeting their full like potential?
Oh, good question. So I've actually seen this in both men and women, but the majority of my client load is women at this time and has been historically. But I would say the excess skin and the role that excess skin plays in how they feel about themselves. They don't want to have sex with the lights on. They are embarrassed about having the skin hanging and it doesn't fit in their clothes well. They can't wear certain outfits. They're afraid to put on the bikini or they're afraid to be naked in front of their current partner or even a prospective partner. They find that they feel really good about themselves as they're losing weight, but then they stand back and they're like, oh my gosh, I have this crepey skin and I have fat pockets and I have this fold that's going over my pubic bone and my vulva, and my thighs are sagging, like I'm not attractive, I now need to cover up. And they go back to many of the behaviors they had when they were overweight. And it
Hmm.
creates a confusion for them because it's like, wait, I'm no longer, this weight that I once was. I've lost, 100 plus pounds, but I'm still acting as if I am this person who has the opportunity to, kind of be back in that, I call it a fat brain. where you're operating from a stance of, I need to protect myself, I need to safeguard myself, I'm going to use food as a way to soothe and comfort. Whereas you can't do that anymore if you've had bariatric surgery or if you are on a GLP-1 medication because you're going to get sick. So
Right.
Yes.
I
All of
know.
that. Yes.
Yes. And I know for me in particular, I felt sexier when I was overweight than I did pre skin removal after weight loss. And I lost my weight natural, so I don't have those blocks, right? That I can eat
yeah,
whatever I want and not get sick. But when I looked in the mirror when I was big, at least I was full and voluptuous. And then when I
yeah,
lost, 120 pounds, I looked like I fucking melted. And it was, to me, it was disgusting. And I think Steph, I mean, my relationship with Pablo, oops, we're gonna put his name out there, whatever.
Whatever, fucker.
I was in a relationship for 3 years with him and I wasn't sexually satisfied, I don't think once with him.
oh,
And
oh,
And
I,
nor would she turn the lights on.
and
He's
nor would
never
I
seen
turn the
her
lights
with the
on.
lights on.
And I didn't feel comfortable saying anything to him or asking for my needs to be met because I didn't want to lose him because who else is gonna want me, right?
yeah,
And
that's so
so
common.
yeah, and it sucks to live like that. And now
Mhm.
being after skin removal, all of that stuff, I feel so sexy and so beautiful, but I'm so afraid to like get out there and like
Mhm.
let it flow, because I
Mhm.
Yeah,
associate that because the fat 300-pound Justy, she liked to party, and I associate sexual openness with that insecure fat woman that I used to be, and I'm looking to find the balance in satisfying the current Justy and letting go of that bullshit, right?
yeah. Ooh, a lot to
You're
unpack
like, that's
there.
a lot.
No, so
Yes.
there's a lot to unpack there. So number one, congratulations. No matter how we lose our weight, whether we're doing it naturally by going into a calorie deficit and moving our body,
Yes.
or we're doing a GLP-1, or we're doing weight loss surgery, no matter what it is that we do, it is such a feat to be able to do it. Just
Mm-hmm.
because it is one of the hardest things that we will ever have to do. And in
Mm-hmm.
examining weight loss, we have to examine not only ourselves, but our biggest relationships. And I don't know about y'all, but for me, I had sleeve surgery almost 10 years ago. I lost 165 pounds. I got involved with a fucknut who I ended up marrying and divorcing. And I ended up gaining 75 pounds. I went on a GLP-1 like, I don't know, 14 months ago. I'm now down 88 pounds and I feel better than ever. But in my journey, I had found that the biggest issue I had was my relationship with food. Food was my best friend, it was my biggest enemy. And it was the thing I went to in order to comfort myself and soothe myself. And it was the thing I went to because it never talked back. It never said ugly things to me. It never let me down. It always, always helped me to feel good when I was done until the guilt and shame set in. And that
Mm-hmm.
cycle, just that endless cycle, was something that just was so toxic. And it mirrored other romantic relationships I had in my world as well.
Mm-hmm.
And there comes a point in time where we have to take a look at that piece of our life in order to really examine, ooh, what are we carrying with us that is no longer in alignment with us, right?
Mm-hmm.
The construct of the good girl versus the bad girl, or the good girl versus the hoe, is definitely a social construct. And it
Mm-hmm.
was designed by men in order at bay, right? We don't want to be able to be liberated. We want to make sure that we are, in essence, repressed. And society has perpetuated that message. And that message is just that it's a construct, something that we use to put people in boxes. Psych 101 says, if we had to look at it from a nerdy point of view, Psych 101 says we desire to have a connection. Bio 101 says that we want to love and be loved. Sex 101 says I want to show you how much I love you and how much I care about you. So when you merge those three things together, we tend to want to put people into boxes, right? Like, you identify this way, you look at things this way. The good girl, bad girl is definitely a dichotomy that we don't have to continue to perpetuate. And it takes a long time in order to break that stereotype and to break that barrier. And it's one that can be done, but ultimately it comes down to your confidence. Whether you are 400 pounds or 140 pounds, anywhere in between and outside of those boxes, it's about how you carry yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And I think confidence, and it's so cliche, and I can't believe I'm saying this, I think confidence is the sexiest thing that you can wear. Like, I know I'm a prize. You could come to me and say all the things. I'm telling you I'm a prize. And I've had moments and lapses in judgment where I'm like, oh my God, I'm so in love with him. Oh, I can't be without him. He's so great. And then you dust yourself off and you realize that's someone's dusty, crusty son, because I'm heterosexual, but that's someone's dusty, crusty son. And if you can't see what a prize I am, then you just have to fuck aside, because there's going to be someone else who's going to be even better, and you always upgrade, right?
Right.
So as we are navigating this, and as we are navigating, sort of how do we break free, it's about recognizing what are the perspectives that we're holding on to that are holding us back. So I reference what I call fat brain, and that's just a Dr. Vism. But essentially, it's when you operate at a stance of being overweight, you are afraid to lose people. You will people please so that you don't push those away. You tend to operate, or many people tend to operate from a stance of fear. I fear being rejected, not being chosen, not being selected, being the last. I fear abandonment, that you're going to leave me, and that when you leave me, I'll never find anyone better, or I'll never have an opportunity like this again. That we fear failing. I can't lose again. I can't not have this be successful, because I've set this unrealistic standard for myself, and I'm never going to be able to achieve it. And so we seek out these external things, people, places, things, and situations that really give us what we think is the fulfillment. That's where food comes in. That's where relationships come in. That's where these situational stressors come in, the perfectionism, the people pleasing. And ultimately, the very thing that you are striving for is the very thing that you're losing. So just indulge me for a second. I want you to take your hand, okay? And I want you to ball it up into a fist. I want you to squeeze as tight as you can. Like, squeeze it until it actually hurts when you're shaking. As you're doing this is what happens when we are seeking so much external validation, that we are seeking people, places, things, and situations to fulfill us. We ultimately are just squeezing so tight that, guess what? You're hurting yourself. I want you to relax your hand. Ooh, open up your palms, stretch out your fingers, right? And then take your hands and put them together as if you were receiving a gift. This is what happens when you finally let go of the external validation, and you start to recognize that you are the prize, and that there's a balance between the internal validation that you seek and the external validation. There's a balance that can be had, and both can be held and have space for us. When we can find that balance between the two, that then allows us to find, okay, we now can start to work on letting go of the things that are choking us, that are harming us, that we hold on to so tightly that they really have no place for us anymore, because they're archaic and they're no longer in alignment. That's the process that I take my clients through.
And I think for me, in particular, I used to have seek external validation on a regular, right? And so whether it was through alcohol, food, or strange men, those were my top three. I stopped all of that. And I literally don't drink hardly anymore. I don't have sex, and I don't overeat food. So all of that is gone. I've worked through all that over the last few years. Now I'm opposite. It's like, I want to enjoy food. I want to enjoy sex. I'd like to enjoy going out to drink. I don't trust myself. And so I've gone opposite, where it's like, I don't need any of that external validation, because I validate myself, but I'd like to just fucking relax and have some fun. You know what I mean? Steph knows exactly what I'm talking about.
I
And it's
do.
like,
Yes, I do.
like, I'm almost too much, where it's like, oh, it's not like I'm trying to find external validation. It's that I think so highly of myself now. I don't think anybody deserves it.
And I think it's the very black and white, like you're either on or you're off kind of
Yeah.
thing. And
Mm-hmm.
and so where it was that way with us when in losing weight, where it was like you're either eating a whole pizza or you're not eating
Not
pizza at
eating at
all.
all.
And
Yeah.
you're right. And we've always been very black and white with everything that we've done. Like, it's all or nothing. And so it's
Mm-hmm.
kind of like, you now need to figure out how, because you've let go of it with eating, the all
Mm-hmm.
or nothing mindset of eating, but how now it's moved on over to the all or nothing mindset of, when it comes to all the things that you used to self-soothe with, which would be, strange men and alcohol.
Alcohol.
And I think the alcohol part, though, I think you found a balance there as
Mm-hmm.
well.
Mm-hmm.
And honestly, though, Justy, I think you would find a balance with when it comes to men too, except for you just haven't been able to find one that's like,
Not a
on the
jackass.
rocker still. Like,
But let me ask you this though, because I just had this happen. So I should, if it's okay, I'm going to pivot for a second. So I'm writing a book. It's called She
Uh-huh.
Makes Bad Decisions.
Ah,
And as I
yeah.
referenced, I
So you're
married a
writing
fuck.
about Justy.
I'm writing about all of us, all
Yes.
of us individuals who have been on journeys where we have made bad decisions. So
mhm.
essentially, think of the book as being like a chicken soup for the soul kind of book, where I talk about my escapades from the time I was separated and I started, kind of dating until I was divorced and even post divorce. And it leads up to kind of, there's a roundabout way. So every guy that I interacted with, I give him a name, like the Canadian, Horse Teeth, Saint Nick with a little dick, Sergeant Deputy Pew Pew, right? They all have a nickname. And then I talk about how did I meet them, how did they get their name, what happened, and then I have red flags, I have dumpster fires, and then I have the bitch fix your crown moments, which are essentially, hey, like you've seen these things, you overlook them, glaringly obvious things. Now that you've been on the other side of this, rather than focusing on why did this happen and why does this always happen to me, it doesn't. The why never matters. What did you learn from this, and how can you apply what you've learned in order to be a better version of yourself? Those are your
Yes.
bitch fix your crown moments. So that leads me back to the person that I just ended things with, or we just ended things with each other. He has 6 chapters in my book. It's the Canadian, the deported part deux, the deported part trois, Letterkenny, and he's a fuckboy. And the one thing I valued about the relationship that we had was, as much of a fuck nut as he was, I was able to practice things that I wasn't able to practice in other relationships.
Mhm.
So sometimes just the shift in the perspective of I'm dating for marriage, I'm dating for long term potential, to I'm dating to see what comes up so that way I know how to overcome it. Because there were things that I thought were
Ooh.
resolved when I was, separated and divorcing and whatever, that had totally reared its head. And I was able to have conversations that I didn't feel confident or comfortable having previously. I was able to do things a little bit differently. Now he's his own problem and he's his own mess, but in being able to practice many of the things with him, I realized not only things within relationships that I want to resolve and I'm going to continue to work on, but also the things within myself that I can still continue to grow and evolve from. So sometimes even shifting the perspective away from I need to marry, I need to be in this long term relationship because that's what society tells me to do, to, hey, let me practice the skills, let me get this thing out and let me just enjoy myself and see what happens from this. Sometimes just even having that shift in perspective can be freeing.
I love that so much. I love that so much because I feel like that's what I need to do. In my soul, deep down in my soul, I know I want to find like my partner in life. And I very quickly identify if that person is going to be a good partner or not. And if not, you got to go. But I don't give them any time to teach me anything, right? I
Yeah,
literally
and
just don't.
it could be
Like,
based on their thumbs.
their thumbs.
If
Like, I don't like
yeah.
your thumbs. You're not going to be a good partner. Next. And it's kind of like now, and I don't get to the point where I'm intimate with them until I feel like, for the most part, until I feel like they're worth that. They have potential to be that. And just this morning I read a meme that said something about I don't date for I don't date for a relationship anymore. I date for experiments or experience or something like that. And so that's kind of really aligning with what I feel like I need to change my perspective, because I'm just looking for a husband out here. But maybe that's not what I need to be looking for.
And you know what? If you're looking for a husband, there's nothing wrong with that. But if that's your sole focus, think of
Hmm.
it like this: like you're a horse with blinders on. If your sole focus is I'm looking for a husband, he has to look like this. What about all those things that are on the other side that we might be missing out on? Whereas
Yeah.
if you're like, okay, I'm dating to see what is out there. Obviously, we need to have standards. We need to know, okay, this is what
Right.
I definitely have to have in a partner. This is what I absolutely cannot have. But then there's
Mhm.
that flexibility in between that can be helpful. But it sounds like there's this all or nothing or black or white type of thinking, which
Yeah.
is rigid and it's pervasive and it's not uncommon with many of us, right? How many of us were on the, oh, I fucked up today, I'll start again tomorrow, or I'll start again on
Hmm.
Monday, right? It's
Hmm.
just that cycle that continued and continued and continued. The same thing can happen with our thoughts that, oh, it has to be this way, or I'm a failure, and so fuck it, I'm going to do whatever I want to do, and I'll start again tomorrow or start again on Monday.
And I catch myself telling myself, like, I don't understand why I'm unlovable. Like that's what I like. If somebody's not doesn't work out, or if they just don't show up for me the way I feel, like I'm like, why am I unlovable? And but I'm
Oh my
not. I
gosh.
am.
It has nothing to
It's
do. It
not
has
me.
nothing to right.
Yeah.
But when you point that finger, like, oh my gosh, what makes me unlovable? Like if you
Mhm.
literally point your finger, there are three pointing in the opposite direction. So when
Right.
you're like, what's wrong with me that I'm unlovable? That just it has nothing to do with you. It's really about them. That's their
Right.
experience. And
Right.
people come in and out of our life by choice or by force, right?
Hmm.
So I a lot of times I'll tell my clients, when you establish a boundary, that's like the big thing that I think
Hmm.
a lot of us struggle with is boundaries. But
Mm.
when you have a boundary, people are either going to respect it and be a part of your world, or they're going to realize they're not in alignment with it and they're going to find a way to vacate, or you're going to find a way to vacate them.
Right.
And there's nothing wrong with that. Same thing applies here, though, is that just because someone isn't the right fit for you energetically or in a romantic sense or whatever the case is, if they're not the right fit for you, that has nothing to do with you. It just means that you're not on the right wavelength. Think of it
Hmm.
like this: every relationship is a mirror, right? It mirrors where we're at, it mirrors what's happening for us, it mirrors what's going on for us, things that we can improve on. And you attract the same level of problems that you're at. So if you meet someone and they're just not the right fit for you and you've
Hmm.
grown and evolved even just a little bit, you're going to be
Hmm.
two ships passing in the night. And that's okay. Let him go do his thing. Because if he wants to meet you where you're at, he's going to do his own work. And there's a lot of people, not just men, but a lot of people today that are not ready, willing, able, or desiring to change. They don't
Yeah.
want to meet you where you're at. They don't want
Hmm.
to do that work.
Hmm.
So let those hot waffles and fuck nuts go. Let them go on their merry way. Because that's just opening up the door for you for the right person.
Hmm.
I've
Yeah.
actually had that conversation recently with quite often about letting people go,
Hmm.
not even just in like romantically in relationships but friendships too, where
Hmm.
when they no longer serve a purpose for you. And I hate to sound that way, like people are disposable, but it's almost like, you'll hear and we have changed, like, oh, you've changed. Well, you're
Yeah.
damn right I have. That was the point. That's the point, is
Hmm.
to grow and to change and to evolve. And so I left friends behind from that I've been friends with my whole life, as
Hmm.
I've grown and as I've changed in my life, because that's not who I am anymore. And if I hang on to, and Justy, I know you have too, and you and I have talked about it before too, they
Hmm.
were really great friends. And then sometimes they weren't really great friends. And it's like, as you
Hmm.
realize it, like, I'm worth more than that. So if I know if I can do that with, with a friend, you can do it with anybody. And you don't,
Right.
I'm not saying that you have to, but I literally just had this conversation like 2 weeks ago. You don't have to leave people behind, but if it is really that opposite of your purpose in life and your health and your wellness, then it's time to just let them go. Because someone
Yeah.
has tenure in your life doesn't mean that they have to be there forever.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. And it's interesting because my current situation, what we'll call him Buckeye. So
Jesus Christ.
Buckeye, it's like there's
Making me
so many
choke on my cough drop.
there's so many things with this person that I was like, I will not date someone younger than me. I will not date someone with children. I will not have a long distance relationship. I will not get emotionally attached to somebody that I don't know. You know what I mean? Like all these things, but all of that is different with Buckeye.
And I
And
was like, Justy, shut the fuck up. Just stop, because you'll stop talking to someone because they have weird thumbs, okay, and you've
right.
never actually like gotten to know them. So I'm like, stop. Like, maybe she was like, yeah, but like I don't want to be like you. She's like, you're like Girl Scouts and soccer mom. I'm like, I chose that life with my stepkids. That's the life
Mhm.
I chose because I don't have kids of my own. I always wanted kids and I chose to jump in head first into that role. You don't have to choose that. So just ruling someone out because they have kids because you don't want to take them to Girl Scouts every week or whatever, like, you don't have to be that. Like, you be
Yeah.
who you want to be.
And that's about setting boundaries, right?
Hmm.
So, and it probably won't work out with Buckeye. Let's just be real. Like
See, she's doing it already.
it probably won't work out, but at least it's taught me that maybe I can look outside of my little box, right? And yeah, and it's kind of opened my eyes a little bit to like, okay, maybe I could be a stepmom someday or, or live in Ohio.
What? Absolutely the fuck not. No, 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 no. Ohio's a great state to visit. Ohio's beautiful and gray.
She used to
Florida's
live in Ohio, so
Yeah, I did.
yeah.
Florida's beautiful. Let's focus on the beautiful sunshine of Florida.
Right,
Right.
right, right.
I'm
Yeah.
from Philly, so listen, I'm used to like dirt and nastiness. Like the whole Philly area just smells. Like I get it.
Yes, you're
Mhm.
right down the street from me, by the way.
Mhm.
I'm from New Jersey, but I live in Delaware now.
Mhm.
Okay, so I was
I'll
born in
be in
South
Philly
Jersey.
tomorrow for the parade.
So I was gonna go to the parade, but I went to the Super Bowl instead. So I was like, I
Yeah,
supported my team in NOLA,
yeah,
so
you
we're
did
good.
it. Yeah.
I
But
really
here's
do love that. I really do love that. And thank you so much for that. That kind of perspective of, okay, yeah, you would like to find a husband, but until then, just take it for what it is.
have fun.
And really learn this, take this opportunity to learn stuff about myself. Give me,
Well,
Right.
I mean,
learn
how much did
patience.
you? Yeah, but how much did you restrict yourself? And I think every person, when you, there are, I believe, and this is just a belief, and my assumptions are often wrong, but I'm going to go out on a limb. I never come with absolute. However, I would think many people struggle with themselves at some point in their life. There's going to come at least one moment in their life where they feel a little less than, right?
Mhm.
And when they feel a little less than, whether they're big or too small or too tall or too short or too their hair is too short or their hair is too long or they have hair or they shouldn't have hair, right? Whatever the case is, there comes a point in time where we feel a little less than. And when we feel a little less than, we start to hold back. We start to restrict ourselves in some
Mhm.
capacity, right? As people who are overweight, statistically, we do it a lot more than most.
Mhm.
So, how many years did you prevent yourself from having really good sex and having really good moments and wearing the bikini and going on the trip and getting on that ride or
Mhm.
going out on that limb? Probably more than you care to recognize and admit.
Mhm.
So, give yourself that opportunity now. Why not? You are young, you are single-ish in this
I am
situation, ish
single. Yeah.
relationship, right?
She's
So
like, yes,
you're
yes,
in the
I
thing.
am.
Go have fun. Like there is nothing wrong with being able to explore what it is that you are desiring, as long as it's safe and consensual,
Mhm.
and that you are taking any and all precautions necessary that you desire. There's nothing
How do
wrong
you
with it.
kind of get rid of that, like, good girl though mentality? Like, I'm a very loyal person, and it's like if I'm talking to somebody, I feel like I focus on them. I'm not like jumping around. I used to be a jumper, but that didn't serve me well. And it's kind of like, how do you get rid of that shame from being sexually open?
Great
I
question.
know that's like
But
hours of work, but
yeah, no, it's not really, it comes down to perspective, right?
Mhm.
So the perspective for you is I need to be one on one with someone. If that's where
Mhm.
your comfort zone is, then you can still be one on one with someone while still being able to be flirtatious outside of it. Just because you're flirting with someone, just because you're practicing smiling and making eye contact with people outside of this person that you're getting to know better, doesn't mean you're a whore or a slut. It just means that I'm practicing making eye contact because for many years, maybe you kept your eyes down. You didn't want to make eye contact, or you'd make eye contact and look away real quick. Now it's like I want to hold my chest out and my chin high, and I want to smile at you, and I'm going to bat my eyelashes, and bitch, you're going to buy me a drink.
Yeah.
That's okay. That doesn't mean you got to marry him. That doesn't mean you got to jump in bed with them. It doesn't mean anything other than I want to hold myself to a standard where I feel really good about myself, and I'm going to practice my confidence. It's all
Right.
about that perspective, and to let go of that good girl image. It's about defining what you say is good in a
Mhm.
girl versus bad in a girl, and then you shift that perspective. So if a good girl means that you're pure and a bad girl means that you're a slut, well, those are really extremes. What's that point in between?
Right.
I want to be a bad girl with the same guy. Like,
That's a lot of fun. I'm not
I
gonna
want to
lie.
have the same partner but be a bad girl.
Which
Yeah,
is
but that's
why
something.
I was
Go
just
ahead.
gonna say, which is why, having a drink or an appetizer with Mountain Man isn't a bad thing because like
Yeah,
you're not committed to anyone. So
right.
go out and have a drink with Mountain Man and then still talk to Buckeye. You're not doing any
I'm
harm
not
to
doing
anybody.
anything
You're not
wrong.
committed to anybody.
I'm just such a, like, you know
All or
me.
nothing.
I'm a all
Yeah.
or nothing, and I'm a very loyal person, and I'm very like, um yeah, just a very loyal person. And I
But it's not
also,
the loyalty for you. It's a black or white thinking. It's that all
it
or nothing
is
thinking. I'm
it
either all in
is
or I'm not at all. That's what's
and
holding you back.
that's so crazy that I never even put those two and two together. Well, I was the same way with my weight loss. So I know I can overcome that because I have done it with my weight loss. But yeah, I am very all or nothing. Like, you're either going to give me everything I need or nothing at all, or we're going to be doing this or we're just not. And that's not okay, I guess.
It's not that it's not okay, it just doesn't serve you, right?
Yeah, it doesn't,
So
because I'm not satisfied. Like, I'm a woman. I'm going to be 50 next year. I feel beautiful. I'm in my sexual prime. Like, I would love to like have some fun before the well dries up. You know what I mean?
the well
Um,
never listen, the well won't dry up as long as you maintain that well will never dry up. You might need to add some things to the well to keep it going, but the well will never dry up. That is a
well, that's
fallacy.
good. That's good. That's good. But yeah,
However,
that's
for you, that all or nothing, it's going to stop you from being able to find that middle ground, right? And
mhm,
I'm sure we also go to the worst case scenarios and without considering best case scenarios and most likely scenarios, right? That type of thinking is what can chokehold us, and it doesn't
yeah.
allow us to live our genuine, authentic life. So being able to recognize, hey, I'm in that mindset, and you don't have to go to a positive one because it's not easy to go to that positive mindset, but going to that more neutral, like, hey, look, but anything can change at any time. I'm just going to go one step at a time. I'm going to allow myself to just put one foot forward in front of the other and just see what happens. You never go backwards. I'm going to pivot, take care of myself, and then I'm going to come back and I'm going to see what happens, right? We can just have these more neutral moments and these more neutral thoughts. And the more that we reframe those thoughts to that
Mhm,
neutrality and eventually to positive, we start to actually rewire our subconscious brain, the brain that is responsible for kind of driving the bus. And we start to look at things differently. Also,
mhm.
come from this perspective too. What you focus on expands, right? So if you focus on, I have to be this good girl, and this is what a good girl means, and this is what a good girl does, your brain is going to scan the environment constantly and look for ways to stimulate your senses by saying, yes, this is a good girl. That's what, there's another example of a good girl. Oh, no, no, no. You're doing that. You're a bad girl. You're a slut. You're a whore. You're an awful person. You can't do that because, oh my gosh, now that's something that's contemptuous against us. It's criticism, and we can't handle that. When that's not true at all.
Mhm.
It just means that that's the lens in which you're coming from. So reframing good girl and reframing bad girl, and
Yeah.
then looking at how can we, just find that middle piece, that middle ground. And that's
Well, and
hard for a lot of
because
people.
I do find myself being very judgy too. So I have a lot of single friends, and I just see them like every 3 months being dick drunk over some jackass. And it's just this never ending cycle of, oh, this guy, blah, blah, blah. And then 3 months later, it's a different one. And 3 months later, it's a different one. And that's okay for them, but I don't want to do that. You know what I mean? I don't want to get tripped up over every swinging dick that comes my way. And I know I can because I used to. And so that's the
But that's who you
restrictive.
were then. That's not who you are
Yeah.
now.
Yeah.
Who you were then, think of
Mm-hmm.
all the lessons you've learned along the way. Think of
True.
all the
Yeah.
things that you've been able to accomplish along the way. You are not the same person you were yesterday, even today, and the person you are today is not going to be the person that you are tomorrow.
Yeah.
So give yourself a little bit more credit than that. Like, yes,
Yeah.
okay, there's an opportunity for us to kind of go back to that because that's what we're used to. But now that we are aware of that, how can we maneuver it a little bit differently? Well, I'm going to give myself time to get to know somebody before I jump in bed with them. I'm going to give myself an opportunity to see, if they meet certain criteria before I decide to become intimate with them. And maybe you decide one night, you know what, I just really want to ride that dick and I want to see what the fuck he's working with and I'm going to have the best orgasm of my life and fuck it otherwise. And
Yes.
that's
Land
okay too.
Rover. I had an experience. I did let myself have an experience. His name is Land Rover. So
She's got names for everybody, by
we've
the
got,
way.
we've got
Totally get
names
it. I
for
love that.
everybody. But I think Land Rover really and Upsies, I guess we call him Cow Patty now.
Cow patty. Hmm.
Those are the only two literally in the last few years that I've allowed in me.
Did you have fun?
Literally.
I've gone on a lot of dates, but it's kind of like I want to get to know somebody and have like at least some sort of safety or emotional connection with them. But I find that guys are out here, if you don't sleep with them on the third date, they go on to the girl who will. And I'm not that girl. And so that's also a balance. It's like, okay, I either need to be loosey goosey or, it, it's
What's
hard.
happening but that's a mirror. What's happening that you're attracting that person? Like I realized with the Canadian, that's the last dude. So with the Canadian, I realized I attracted somebody who was emotionally unavailable. That does it all the time, lowering my hand.
That's okay.
It does that automatically now. So I realized that I attracted somebody who was emotionally unavailable because at the time that I met him, I was emotionally unavailable.
Mm-hmm.
And we attracted each other. And within 3 hours of meeting him, I was riding the stick on his island in his kitchen. And it was the best sex of my life for 9.5 months. Listen, fire isn't like the fucking name of it. It was absolutely mind blowing, out of control. I mean, the first night, I stopped counting at like 25 orgasms. We fucked from 11
Hell
o'clock
yeah.
at night until I went to court to go, stick around with my fucking ex-husband, we were separated at the time. When I had to leave for court at 7:30 in the morning, and I literally showed up to court like just as is, like, how you doing,
It's great.
Yes.
right?
I love
But
that for you.
but we're allowed to have those experiences if we choose to, right?
Mm-hmm.
But when we start to recognize there's patterns of people that we're attracting into our world, it's less about the specific person and more about the pattern. So you've dated a lot, great, but what are you attracting? Because that's a reflection of where you're at.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're
Unavailable
attracting,
men.
right, so that says that you may be emotionally unavailable, or that your walls may be so tall
Oh
that
yeah.
we're not allowing somebody to come in, because for you, maybe vulnerability isn't as safe as we perceive it to be, or we're looking for somebody who's going to chip away at that wall. That's not
Mm-hmm.
fair to put onto someone. Those are
Yeah.
the things that we have to examine kind of behind the scenes to figure out what's happening. I know for me right now, I'm still stuck on the Canadian. Like, I know that I'm dignitized. I know that I still have work to do to undo that, because in my learning of this, because just because I'm a therapist doesn't mean that I'm fallible. I've come to realize that I'm in love with the way that I make myself feel with him, more so
Mm-hmm.
than the way that he loves me or
Yeah.
could ever love
Mhm.
me.
Yeah.
And there's something to be said about that. And that's something that also happens with a lot of people in this community as well. For those of us who are, losing weight or who have lost weight, that sometimes we are so enamored by the potential more so than the reality, because the potential is a lot more glamorous. And
Mm-hmm.
we always wanted someone to see our potential.
Yeah. Oh, that's a good one. That's really good. I'm not guilty of that because I don't fall in love with potential, but I identify they don't have any very quickly.
Right. But you're also getting rid of them because of their phone.
Right.
So
Yeah.
that says that just screams
Yeah.
emotional unavailability. Like,
Yeah.
I'm not as available as I want to make myself out to be. And that's okay. But it's about recognizing, okay, if I'm not there, then what do I need to do in order to get there? What is there left for me to do in order to grow and evolve? And there's nothing wrong with that, because we're going to be growing and evolving until the day we die, because we're
Yeah.
sexual beings from birth to death, right? So there's so much that we can get from these experiences. That's why maybe having some of those opportunities to just say, I'm not looking I want a husband. Like, that's the ultimate goal. I'm going to put that out there. But in the meantime, I'm going to enjoy that journey. Let me date around and let me see what's out there. I don't like you because you're thumbs. Well, let me get to know you for another date or two. Listen, if he's going to buy you a meal or he's going to buy you a good time, listen, I'm going to fucking do it. Right.
Uh-huh.
So let's see what else is out there. Maybe there's characteristics in that person with the weird thumbs that maybe you want in another partner. Like, oh, wow, I really like that style of joke or humor. Or, oh, I really like the fact that that person pulls out the chair, opens the door for me. I want, chivalry really isn't dead. And I want that in my partner.
And I think that when you said like having walls up, I definitely do for sure. And I think my kind of pickiness is a defense mechanism to not get hurt, right? So if I push them away first or find something wrong with them first, then they can't find what's wrong with me. And I don't honestly think a lot of things are wrong with me. I mean, I have a lot of things wrong, but not big, huge issues, but I don't want to be hurt. Like, again, like I have been, multiple times, and it's kind of so, but that's just, I guess that's going to happen. But if I go into it of wanting a husband rather than this experience, that I'm more likely to get hurt and disappointed because I want more than what they're able to give. If that makes sense, maybe.
Absolutely. And there's also a disconnect, because you want someone who's emotionally available and is looking for a wife, but you're not emotionally unavailable. So how can you meet them where they're at and be that better half to them when we're not there?
Right.
That's like saying, I want somebody who is rich and famous, when they're broke and they have nothing really to offer and they don't have a
Mm-hmm.
job and whatever, right?
Mm-hmm.
Not that there's anything wrong with someone who's broke or someone who's rich and famous, but I can't say I want something if I'm not there too, right?
Right. Yeah. No, I get it. And I get it for sure. And I think that was a couple of things that are identified today with me, especially, is the all or nothing. So I know how to fix that. And so I feel like I can go into it with a different mindset and the perspective things like, yeah, I want a husband, but until then, let's see what Buckeye teaches me. Let's see what Mountain Man teaches me. Let's see what, the next person teaches me,
Canada. See what
without
Canada teaches you.
see what Canada teaches,
Another,
because there's a
another
Canadian there
Canadian.
too. So
Mhm.
let's see what
Oh,
Canadian
listen, I
teaches
get
me.
it. I love Canadians. Listen, I love Canadians. Give me all the Canadians. I tell the running joke is I love goats. So I'm a football and a hockey fan, and so I go to a lot of hockey games where I live at in the greater Tampa area, and I seem to get tickets on all the nights where they're playing Canadian teams. So I'm like, oh, I have the Canadian who's got all these other nicknames, and I had Canada 2.0. Where's Canada 3.0? Canada 12? Like, let's go.
Right.
And they're all like, no, no more Canadians. My friends are like, we can't handle another Canadian. And I'm like, yes, I love
That's
Canadians.
that's how I used to be with Latin men.
Well,
There you
Justy's over
go.
here. Justy's the only person I know that meets a man from Canada at the Mexico border. So there's that.
There's that, yeah.
She
I love
she
that.
has a way of meeting them, that's for sure.
Well,
Well,
and
I
that's
guess
the
we all
thing.
met them,
Like,
but yeah.
I am a super flirt. Like, I just am. I can get free drinks anywhere we go. Steph can be a witness to that. But it's like being a flirt and taking it to the next level is, I have a hard time with that without alcohol. Um,
But again,
and
it goes back to that all or nothing thinking because
yeah,
yeah, okay, I'm gonna flirt, I'm gonna get what I want, but I'm looking for a husband, and you're not
yeah,
necessarily husband material because I'm seeing something I don't like. So
yeah,
yeah,
yes, yeah, absolutely. Ooh,
Hit the nail on the head.
I feel like I need some counseling.
don't we all? And we all
Oh
do.
Lord. I think
Yeah, right.
so what about like have you seen in women, like, where do you see that this is something that they carry throughout their weight loss journey, or do they have breakthroughs ever? I'm sure they have breakthroughs because that's what you help them with, but do you see like you know how a lot of people gain their weight back, right? Or what have you?
Yeah.
Do you see like this sexual identity of something that is something that people like figure out, or
Yeah,
do they
absolutely.
keep going back?
No, I think it depends on the person. So whenever you do coaching or counseling, you're going to get out of it what you put into it. So
Right.
if you're not willing to invest the time and the energy and the resources into working through those things that may be holding you back or that may be choke holding you from really living a genuine, authentic life to who you are and what you're about, then we're just going to kind of go through the motion. But I
Mhm.
have seen many of my clients, both in the coaching and counseling realm, who have been able to overcome these things. I've also seen some who have struggled and some who have done well and then had, a momentary lapse where they've gone back to those things that are most comfortable. And I think that part of the human experience is that, you know, we develop these defense mechanisms over our lifetime. And these defense mechanisms like passive aggressiveness or anxiety or shutting down or raising our voices so that we can be heard, those are
Mhm.
things that we learn throughout our life as ways to protect ourselves, to make sure that we're heard, to make sure that we're validated, to make sure that we are, seen and that we're told that we're worthy in some capacity. So it's really about identifying those mechanisms and then replacing them with things that are more functional. So that way we can shift through it. I'm also a believer that, people come to me because they want to change their outcome. But in
Mhm.
order to change your outcome, you have to do things a little bit differently, right? You have to act differently. You have to behave
Mhm.
differently. In order to behave differently, you have to change how you feel. In order to shift how you feel, you have to shift your self concept, those beliefs that you have about yourself. And in
Mhm.
order to shift those self concepts, you have to change your thoughts. So
Yeah.
ultimately, you want to change your outcomes, you have to ultimately change how you think.
Mhm.
And that is hard for a lot of people
Mhm.
because they have deeply ingrained thought patterns, like the all or nothing thinking. That's something that is often pretty ingrained in us, part of our defense
Mhm.
mechanisms. Well, if you don't bring me everything I need, then you're nothing. I'm going to run away from you. Just like with
You know,
dieting. I fucked up today. I ate 2 Milano cookies and I should never have eaten those 2 Milano cookies. So fuck it. I'm going to eat 5 packages of Milano cookies and all the Girl Scout cookies that I can and half of a pizza and I'll worry about it on Monday.
That's so funny. That is so true though. Like,
Mhm.
and Steph and I, we actually have multiple times in our podcast. My thing is a thought. Your thought leads to a feeling, and your feeling leads to a reaction, an action, right? So changing your thought. And I teach people that all the time with weight loss and food and exercise and all that stuff. But I never thought about teaching myself that when it comes to, men. So,
Dating is definitely an art, and it has
uh,
shifted just in the last few years, right? And it's going to continue to shift, and it's going to continue to evolve. But no matter how we will slice or dice it, at the end of the day, it's about being true to who you are. And being
mhm.
true to who you are may not be something that is fits into a perfect box society says is what we need to be or how we need to act.
Yeah.
Sometimes we have to step outside of that box. And just being that we have lost weight, we have stepped outside of the box, right?
Hmm.
And the
Right.
ways in which we've lost weight, we step outside of the box because if you think of it from a health and beauty perspective, you should never have been fat in the first place. And now I define fat either FAT or PHAT. PHAT is pretty hot and tempting. FAT is fine and tempting, right?
Hmm.
That's how I
Yes.
look at it with my clients. And then as we are making these shifts towards a size that is healthier for us, you know, it's a big shift that we have to make because we have to
Hmm.
change so many things about ourselves. But ultimately, it's about the relationship that we have with ourselves. And a
Hmm.
lot of what I do with my clients, again, coaching or counseling, main difference between coaching and counseling is counseling. There's a lot of how does that make you feel types of things. Like, what are your thoughts and your feelings behind it? And how do we process through those emotions, right? Whereas coaching is very directive, like, hey, look, this is what we're going to do and this is how we're going to do it. And here are some things to practice. Come back to me and let's figure out what worked, what didn't, and what needs to be tweaked and when does it need to be tweaked, right?
Hmm.
So there's those perspectives. And one is not better or worse than the other. It's just what do you want to do, right?
Right.
But no matter what, whenever we're looking at these things, whether it's from a counseling or coaching perspective, it's all about being open to the fact that we have learned based off of feedback that we've received from our environment, things that have been modeled for us, and what we have observed in our interactions, that there are certain things that are within our parameters and that aren't. And just the fact that we decided to work on losing weight, we've stepped outside of this parameter. So if we can do it for that, we can do it for really anything else. And
Yeah.
it's about recognizing what are those old relationship perspectives that we're holding on to that maybe aren't in alignment with us. Good girl, bad girl is a really good one that you brought up
Hmm.
earlier. Good girls still sleep on the first with guys on the first date. Bad girls make really bad decisions and end up doing dumb things. But bad girls are still also really good in that they can still be philanthropic and they can still give back to their community and they can still be loving,
Hmm.
people and that they can still, experience emotion and good girls can still be twat waffles and be really evil and be not so kind and,
Yeah.
kick someone when they're down. So
Hmm.
we also have to recognize that with one, there's another. And
Hmm.
anytime you have that extreme, just know that there is that fluctuation.
Yeah.
Keep that in
No,
mind
that
sometimes can be helpful.
that definitely is very helpful. So it's interesting. So I'm going to put you on the spot. Just one thing. If you were coaching me, Justy, single woman, has a little situationship going on, has other options, but really doesn't want any other option but the horse I want. um, what would you say? Like, what would you tell me? Like, my first step to like figuring it out would to be.
I think the first thing would be to examine your self concept. What is the belief
Mhm.
that you have within yourself, right?
Mhm.
And if that horse, so to speak, isn't Buckeye, then what's happening that we're settling for Buckeye?
Right.
What is it that we're doing with him, right? So it's
Uh-huh.
about examining the relationship that we have with ourselves. How do we feel about ourselves? How do we examine ourselves? How do we carry ourselves? And what happens with those that we interact with? So, for you with Buckeye, what's that about? And what does that relationship or situationship do for you?
Mhm.
And are we looking at it in terms of you could be husband material, or are we looking at it like I don't see any material for you in terms of a husband, but I'm going to settle with you right now because I don't want to be alone. that's a red flag.
Mhm.
That
Yeah.
needs to be processed and worked through, right? Because if we're going to hold ourselves to somebody, that means that energetically we're aligning with them for some reason. And they
Mm-hmm.
may not be the right fit for us, but if we are kind of meeting them where they're at, that means that we are people pleasing, that
Yeah.
we may
Mm-hmm.
be, we have some things that we need to work through. So it would be identifying that first. And
Yeah.
then going to your other options. What makes them viable options versus not being viable options? I also come from a much different mindset in that I don't think situationships are bad. I was in one for 9.5 months and it was the best experience of my life. Now, were there many times that I cried? Yes. If you ask my friends, they all hate the Canadian. I mean, they fucking hate him. Like if they had opportunities to run him over with their vehicles, they
Mm-hmm.
would. Like when they met him, the scowls in my house when they met him were like daggers. Like,
Mm-hmm.
ooh, he was not very well liked. He did a lot of really not so kind things, and I put up with a lot of bullshit, right? But that was where I was energetically at that. And
Yeah.
now that I'm removed from it, and I just talked to him last night, like by
Mm-hmm.
text, and I'm just like, you're not even doing it for me anymore. Like, what the fuck is wrong
Right.
with this? Like, I'm
Yeah.
bored. But listen, like I literally, our text has come down to, hey, I love his dog more than him. Oh my God, his dog's so cute. And I'm like, look, can I take your dog on Saturday? I'm doing like a deep ride with my girls. Like,
Uh-huh.
and my dog and his dog like get along. I'm like, let me take your dog for the day. And he's like,
Uh-huh.
well, maybe. And I'm just like, listen, I don't give a fuck about you. Just like, let me come get your dog. I want to cuddle with the dog.
Uh-huh. We're
That's
all Jeep
okay.
girls, by the way.
I
No,
love that.
Yeah.
Hey,
We're
y'all
all
should probably
Jeep
meet
girls.
Vixen
Yeah.
sometime. I love me some Vixen.
Yes.
Um, it's just uh it becomes, you have to examine, and I do it with myself, I do it with everybody, but you have to examine what is leading you into the situation that you're in. For me, it was about having stability because at the time that I had met him, I was not emotionally available.
Mm-hmm.
I was going through the tail end of my divorce. My ex-husband, St. Nick's a little dick. He has he has a lot of mental health problems, heavier than average narcissistic types of tendencies. It was a mess. And I literally had 45 days in the day I was forced to get out of my house, buy this house. It was a mess. I just needed some type of stability. And so having sex with him 3 or 4 nights a week was my stability. And that was fine.
Yeah.
And it was great. But that's what worked for me at the time. That doesn't work for me today. For you, it's about
Hi.
examining what's allowing you to be in this position now. And is it in alignment with you?
Mm-hmm.
Would I ever date the Canadian? No. It was a fun time. We had a really great moment. I thought I loved him. I loved how I felt when I was with him because my love is the sunshine. When I'm there, I'm the sunshine and I'm the prize. And when I'm gone, it's dark and cloudy and they're all miserable. And that's why they all come back to me in some way, shape, or form.
Yes.
But we have to get to a point where we believe that.
Well, and I think in my situation with Buckeye, so I'm just wildly attracted to him, but we've never actually met. And so that's the weird thing, right? And um I'm what I'm trying really hard to not be the fight or flight Justy, like, okay, he's not responding the way I want, so get out of here. Because I'm trying to be more understanding and more patient and more calm and more, whatever, because I am wildly attracted to him. And we talk every day and we have fun and, whatever. But it's very uncomfortable for me to not get what I want or leave, right? Like that's uncomfortable for me to be patient with this gentleman. But I'm trying real hard and Steph's kind of proud of me for hanging on this long, but yeah, it's very strange that I typically would not be attracted to somebody his age with his situation, long term, never met, whatever. And I'm thinking, what the fuck is wrong with me? Am I crazy or is there an actual attraction there? You know what I mean? Yeah.
I don't know that you're necessarily going to know that until you meet them.
Right.
So
Right.
I'd start questioning what's
exactly what
happening
I
that we
said.
haven't met. What are we doing in order
Yeah.
to make that happen, to make that a reality?
Mm-hmm. And his excuses are, and it's been just a couple months we've been talking, but he lives obviously in Ohio. He has children that he is the primary parent of and a job, and he's a coach of sports. Like that, he's a very busy life. But in my mind, my initial reaction is, well, then fuck off, dude. Like I'm worth it. But I'm trying to not be that fuck off, dude, I'm worth it girl. But I am worth it. So fuck off. You know what I mean? So, because I think he is worth being more patient for, but I also don't want to be sitting over here
Strung
like
along forever.
you know what I mean? Like,
there's a difference between being patient and being a doormat.
yeah, definitely. Yeah. And I'm
And
not,
that's where you have to set the boundary. Like what is your
Exactly.
we sort of have talked about this before, but like how when is your I think you gave yourself a cutoff, if I
three
remember correctly.
months.
Yeah.
It's the middle
What
of
is
May, or
your
middle of March. Middle of March
yeah, like
is
what is your cutoff if there's no movement made because you've made yourself pretty
open.
openly available, and the ball is in his court, and if there's no movement, then that's I think that's pretty telling of what the rest of it could be like if there's no movement then.
Yeah, for sure. He's gonna really regret it if he doesn't move by March. But anyway,
Probably so. Don't they always regret it?
they do. They do. And
Listen, they all listen.
that's another
Unfortunately,
thing with
they all come back. At
that's
some point,
another
they
thing with
all
me.
come back. It's like you should have fucked around and found out the first time.
And
Right.
I'm so bad at when I shut the door is
Oh yeah.
locked, bolt locked. I put cement on that bitch, the door is not opening back up. And Steph opens doors. She'll reopen the door. And we're very opposite in that manner, but I think that is also not the most healthy thing. I'm just not a forgiving person. And because typically they do something that I would have never done, right? And so, and I don't think I'm better than anybody, but I need somebody to match my morals. And if they don't, then done, like cut off, Scorpio, like hardcore.
We're both Scorpios. We're opposite Scorpios when it comes down to it sometimes. But like Cal Patty, for example, Cal Patty was a tough one because he was living a whole separate other life, dating other women, and you were completely blindsided.
Yeah.
And it wasn't, you really liked him. Like you
Yeah,
actually let your guard down
I did.
and went into this like openly, like in a relationship,
Mhm.
or at least the start of it, and then you quickly found out
Mhm.
by no fault of your own, it just landed in your lap that he had 2, 3 other women that he was having a whole nother life with.
Right.
And that sucks. So I
It
get why you
sucks.
then close off
It
and
sucks. And but that's been every single man, um even with Buckeye. Like I'm not one to like, I'm not one to be like, I want you, I like you, whatever. And it's kind of like, okay, I've opened myself up to be like, hey, like let's let's flirt, let's talk or whatever. Because normally I would have shut him down because he has kids, because he's younger, because he's far away. Normally I would not have even entertained it, but I'm opening myself and entertaining it, and I'm not getting what I need. And so it's like, okay, well, I guess next. Like, but how many times do you say, okay, next, without being like, fuck, dude? You know what I mean?
But it goes back to what's the pattern that you're attracting. There's a reason that you're attracting these people who are not at
Yeah,
your
I
level.
don't know.
So what's happening? That's where that introspection needs to come in. What's
I don't
happening
know.
that this is what I'm like? How are they common? And what's happening that this is what I'm attracting? Because
Hmm.
it is, it could be by no fault of your own, but they're reflecting something to you that needs to be uncovered and processed and worked through, which is
Yeah,
really hard. It's very, very hard to do that.
yeah. Yeah. I don't know what I attract, why I attract unavailable men or lying, cheating, men, but it's what I do
It could
because
be,
I'm not a lying cheater. I'm not someone
yeah.
who comes into a situation. I'm pure heart, like pure hearted. Like I'm a really good human, and I attract these people who are not good humans. And I'm not saying that every one of them hasn't been a good human, but the majority have not. Or like with Steph Steady Eddie, like amazing guy. I'm just not sexually attracted to him, and I need that too.
But it
So
could be that we've been hurt so much and
so
that we've put
much.
walls up around our heart that we want someone who's going to come in like a knight in shining armor and is
Yes.
going to climb that wall and go
Yes.
over that moat and climb through the
Yes.
pond with the
That's what I want.
alligators. But that's a Disney movie and that's not real.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that is what I want. I want somebody that is going to man the fuck up.
But there's a difference between manning the fuck up and living in a fantasy where we
Yeah.
think that rom-coms and Disney princess movies are what
Yeah.
the standard dating relationships are.
Yeah.
Because
so to
Disney
put it
and
in
rom-coms have
perspective,
failed us.
Mountain Man asked Justy to have drinks or whatever, and then he texted her and said, what time are you available and where would you like to go? And she was like, fuck that. He should be making this decision. And I'm like,
I'm like, why the fuck
I
is he
mean,
asking me? Like, that's his job, you know?
right.
Like,
She was about to call it all off because he asked her where she wanted to go. I was like, maybe he thinks he's being polite. Like, you didn't put it out there. Like, he doesn't know instinctively that you want him to take control because a lot of women want to take control. So he doesn't know who you are. And she was like,
yeah,
okay, I guess I'll go.
But that's right there an example of an unmet expectation. So you have an assumption that if he asks you out, that he's going to be the one to plan the date.
yes,
But you need to explicitly communicate that to him. That's part of your boundary. Hey, listen, here are some ideas, but moving forward, I'd really like it if you ask me out that you offer some suggestions first. That way
yeah,
you've now validated his experience. You're validating your experience too by saying, hey, this is my expectation or this is my assumption, and I'd like for you to do this. Now, if he continues to make it like, oh, well, where do you want to go? What do you want to do? What time works for you?
mm-hmm.
Right? That may be something that is a deal breaker for you.
Because he can't read my mind,
Hey, see, you're getting it now.
even though I wish they could. I mean,
God, no.
But we have to. If we want a long term relationship, just because you have an expectation, their expectation might be different, and it's about coming to that compromise and that middle point. But we
mm-hmm.
can't do that unless we actually talk about it and we say it. And if they don't want to meet you in the middle, then it's an X, because
Right.
that means that they're not going to be in alignment with you.
Yeah. And I guess, and that's okay too. Like if you're not aligned with somebody, that's okay. I have a hard time investing energy and all of that into stuff because I don't want to waste my time, but I guess you have to spend time to figure it out, right?
But Jesse, I think
Well,
that answers your question too of how getting in and out, out of the cycle of okay, next, okay, next. I think you have to ask yourself, have I put my expectations out there before you okay next it? Because you
Right.
were about to okay next this guy, but he had no idea that was your expectation. None.
Yeah. This is true.
None. He
Yeah.
probably thought he was
Yeah.
being polite, and it did seem a little formal to me.
Right.
She sent me a screenshot. I'm like, who writes like that? But
Like who
okay.
the
She's
fuck
like,
writes like
he
this?
didn't talk like that when I met him in person. So I'm just like, what? Like, you can't okay next him because he doesn't know what you wanted. Like, put it out there. So I think
Yeah.
that's where you have to set your not that I'm the therapist, but that's where you have to set your boundary around. Like, okay, I've said it already, and now he's still not doing it. Okay, next. But if you haven't said it, to okay next him is kind of like you might be robbing yourself of what could have been something really good had you just said it in the first place.
Yeah. I can see that. That's true. So true. Look at you guys
Anyway,
solving all my
we could talk
problems.
about this forever, but I think it's time for Justin to do some work.
I think I have a
Do
lot
some
of work
work
to
around
do.
those thoughts.
I think I have a lot of work to do. And that's the thing. It's kind of like it's really hard to be vulnerable. For me, it's hard to be vulnerable because I've always been a strong, very independent, badass woman, right? It's hard for me to ask for what I want. I think that is the biggest problem for me,
Same.
is to say what I want, what I
For
need.
fear of
Be-
rejection. And it's
for
the
fear of
same for me.
rejection.
Yes.
Even though I think I'm a catch and my wants and needs I don't think are outside of a normal spectrum, but it is in fear of rejection. And that's really hard to navigate in this crazy single world, right?
Absolutely, absolutely. I think fear of rejection and fear of abandonment are the two biggest fears when it
Mm-hmm.
comes to dating, because nobody wants to be hurt. Nobody wants to be overlooked or not chosen or not selected or told that we're in some capacity not enough. Um, I can actually just Christmas. The Canadian and I broke up in December, and December 8th. And I remember sitting here for Christmas after spending a fuck ton of money on him and his kid and his dog. And we were in no contact. And I just remember sitting, looking at my tree, like crying. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I can't fucking believe this bullshit. Like, I'm so mad at myself. I was mad at myself
Mm-hmm.
more so that I did things that I had gone back to an old pattern. My old
Mm-hmm.
pattern was buying people protection.
Yeah.
Whenever I sensed that they were starting to pull away, like, oh, let me buy you a gift. Let me
Mm-hmm.
buy you this. Let me buy you that. Right. And that's not healthy.
Mm-hmm.
And he was actually very, very good about it. I know he was uncomfortable and he expressed it, and I didn't listen all the time, but he was patient with me. So I thank him for that. But we have to get to a point where we recognize, like for me, my fear of rejection was I didn't want him to not choose me, because I didn't feel like if I failed, like as a therapist and as a person, like what is wrong with me? How am I deficient? But it's not a reflection of me, it's a reflection of him. He
Yeah.
has his own problems, he has his own shit, he knows it. And we've had many conversations about it, and I'm not here to air his dirty laundry. But he has the option to do the work, and he has chosen not to. Not in a way that's going to be in alignment for me and anything moving forward with me. So listen,
Yeah.
I'll come take your dog. I love your dog. Listen, I will be friendly with you. We can go to a hockey game and have a good time, but we will never be intimate. Not at this version that you're at right now. We will never date. Not at the version that you're at right now. He's got work to do, and if he chooses not to, that's fine. There will be someone somewhere who's at the same level of him. But I have leveled up, and I've had
Yeah.
to because of all the things that I've been through in the last 2 years. And that's okay. That's not to say that I'm better or worse than him. I'm just at a different place than he is. And I wish him well. I truly, truly believe that when we wish people that we are not in alignment with, when we wish them health, healing, light, and love, all the emotions come back to us as a boomerang. I'm not going to put out there frustration and anger and irritation and sadness. I'm going to put out there that light and love, because that comes back, and it always does.
Yeah.
So for you, it's about figuring out, you meaning really anyone, about what is it that we're putting out there, and is it in alignment with us? Do we need to examine those messages? Do we need to examine those mechanisms? Do we need to have things that are a little bit more functional and less defensive or reactive in order for us to be at a place where we can be our happiest? And how do we step outside of the box more so than we already have? Stepping outside of the box has been scary, but it's also been rewarding, because for many of us listening or watching, we have done something really incredible in setting a goal of losing weight and then achieving it. So we know that we can do it. Now it's just about refining.
Yeah, and I think Steph and I are both very goal-oriented people. With our careers, we're very successful. With our weight loss, we've been very successful. A lot of ways in life, we've been very, very successful. And I honestly feel like for me, I have set this goal of having a relationship. And so it's like I'm super focused on that. And if it doesn't align with that, I don't want anything to do with it. But I think maybe after this conversation, maybe some variations along the way are going to help me get to that goal. It doesn't have to be a straightforward, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Well, because horses, when they go, and some horses, when they race, they have to have blinders on, because if they see something happening outside of them, they're not going to be focused. They're not going to run fast.
Yeah.
Same thing happens with us. I want a relationship. I need to get married. I mean, what about all these other things that can happen outside of here? You may end up meeting somebody at a bar who, you're not attracted to, but they're going to buy you a drink. And next thing you know, they're bringing their friend who is fucking the next best thing to Bradley Cooper. And now you two are like wildly, like, fucking each other's brains out in the back of, the SUV, and you're having the time of your life. And now that leads into marriage.
That'd be great.
Anything is possible. Anything can happen. Anything can change at any time. But that change first comes with you.
Yeah, definitely.
And releasing those things that are holding us back from really being able to live life. Set forth what your goal is, but stop trying to control the journey.
Yeah.
Because when you try to control the journey, you miss out on a lot of things.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Wow. I think I've learned a lot. It's so helpful. I hope other people learned a lot too by me putting my insanity out there. But yeah, I think this has been really, really helpful. And I know that we have talked about, specifically, all three of us have had weight loss journeys, but I really feel like women who haven't had weight loss journeys can relate to this as well, for sure.
Yeah.
I hope
Yep,
so.
definitely.
Yeah.
I guess so. In wrapping up, unless you had something else. Yep. No, I was just gonna say.
I think I have enough to digest.
Oh yeah, right. I was gonna say. I
I
think
got a
you're
lot to
busy for a little
process
while.
through now.
I'm gonna have to rewatch this like 20 times and
Right.
yeah.
Take notes.
Yeah.
So my question for you, Victoria, is where for people that are watching, and we'll have it listed in the show notes, but where can people find you? Anything that I know you said you have a book that you're working on, so any of that kind of stuff that you want to
Plug it, girl. Plug it.
Yeah, close out with, plug
Absolutely.
it, because I know people are going to want to find you.
Absolutely. Thank you. So we have a Facebook group. It's called Sex and Intimacy After Weight Loss Surgery. So you can find us there. It's Sex and Intimacy After WLS. It's a group of about people who are absolutely awesome. We have a lot of great times. We share a lot of funny memes. We talk about some serious topics and not so serious topics, but all things related to weight loss and relationships. You can also find me at sexafterwls.com, and that's where I will be posting my book once it is published. The hope is by later this year in 2025. So
Yeah.
we should
Yay.
know in the next few months estimated publication date.
Now, do you have an Instagram presence as well, or is it most Facebook?
I do have an Instagram. I don't even know my Instagram handle. I should probably know this. But you can find me actually on you can find me on Facebook. I know that I'm definitely more on Facebook than I am anywhere else, but at facebook.com/VPP0212. And on Instagram, I am at instagram.com/Victoria P. Panna, Panna.
Gotcha.
So
Okay.
you can
And
find me
we'll
there.
put all that information in our two podcast posts so that people can find you easily if they follow us. So this was
Perfect.
really
Thank you.
eye-opening, and I'm really happy that we had this time to talk. And I really think I know before we talked about possibly having you back on, talking about transfer addiction, and maybe even continuing some of this conversation. So I do look forward to that as well.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
same.
Thank you so much for having me. I'd love to come back anytime. Thank you.
Yes,
Aw-
thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
All right, ladies.
Bye, y'all.
Everyone have a good one.
Bye.
Bye.